Hello, everybody. This week on the Earful Tower podcast, you're going to hear a very, very deep dive into the Louvre Museum with author Elaine Cellino. So she's visited you're going to hear she's visited the Louvre hundreds of times, and she's written this wonderful book, which I've read and which we're about to discuss. Hang around at the end for Bertrand Delmont from My Private Paris, talking about a brand new and current exhibition at the Louvre, which he loved. I think he gave it 10 out of 10, and which I have recently visited and I loved as well. So that'll be at the end. My Private Paris, doing tours of Paris and beyond. But first, some music from Press Maxon, and then Elaine Cellino. Elaine Cellino, how are you?
I'm great, Oliver. How are you?
Close to spectacular.
It's so nice to see you after so long.
I think if you don't mind, I think we start by a flashback to Shakespeare and Company Bookshop upstairs. Episode 2 of this podcast we were trying to figure it out, maybe 2017? Talking about Rue de
I
Martyr?
think it was even earlier than that. And I think we've missed a couple of years, maybe. I'll have to go back and look. But you were wonderful, and it was exciting for me to be interviewed by you because you were one of the absolute first people I ever talked to about the book.
Really? And again, today?
Again today.
How am I getting so lucky?
How am I getting so lucky to... You know what? In this world, which is so screwed up right now,
right,
all you have is to hold on to family and old friends.
Right.
And so to reconstruct our relationship and relive it is exciting.
I mean, we count as old friends now, I think.
We do.
If it goes back that far.
We do.
Then over the years, I think regular listeners of this show will remember we talked about your book on the Seine as well.
We did.
And off mic, I remember I gave a talk to some students at your house.
You did.
So this is becoming a
you did.
every 2 year thing.
You came. I was teaching a course at Princeton, and the students came to Paris, and they wanted to understand Paris. And I said, okay, who can I invite to my house who will excite them? And I thought, Oliver, tall, handsome, young, successful.
All right.
There he is.
There you go.
And you wowed them.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and thanks also for taking a gamble on this podcast from the very beginning. That's a big help in why it got anywhere, I think. Although I have heard from you that you thought you were the first ever guest on this show.
I did.
Unfortunately, that's not true.
It was only the second.
Second, yeah, you weren't that quick. Now, we're not going to talk about this podcast. We're going to talk specifically about the world's most famous museum, the Louvre, and we're going to take a real deep dive. Before anything, let's get the facts out of the way. Adventures in the Louvre, How to Fall in Love with the World's Greatest Museum, your new book coming out in April.
Yes.
They're the facts.
Yes.
Now the fiction. Now we dive into the book. Before anything, I've read it, loved it. I love the Louvre. I've been there recently. Kind of a boring question, so we'll get out of the way quickly. Why? Why the Louvre?
I wanted a challenge, and I wanted something I could do that wasn't going to cost me so much money, so I could walk to the Louvre from where I live.
Right.
And I thought, you know what? This will be good for me to really understand this museum. I never studied art history. I thought I can be a reporter in the Louvre.
Right.
And I can go every day and just wander around and discover all new things and explain the Louvre through the prism of someone who's not an art historian and who's not a tour guide.
Right.
So I decided to just report the Louvre and talk to everybody I possibly could.
Right. And by golly, you seem to talk to everybody, from the firefighters to the people running the place to the guy. I love the story about the guy working on the winged Victory with the little feather.
Yeah, I mean, here I meet this curator, and it turns out he goes into his little drawers with all the storage drawers with all the little bits and pieces of marble, and he finds this piece of marble, and it fits, and it creates a whole new vision of the winged Victory of Samothrace, or Nike, which we know of because of our shoes.
Yeah, sure. I think something that struck me about the book is when you it doesn't strike me that you were a Louvre lover before. Definitely not from the beginning.
No, because the Louvre is a challenge. It's too big. It's too disorganized. It operates on 25 different levels. how many visitors have you had to take to the Louvre? It drives you nuts because they all want to go and see the Mona Lisa, and it's too crowded. It's an impossible museum, so you have to find your way in, and that's what I tried to do: is find a new way in to this fortress, which is how it was built.
Well, you seem patient with your visitors, because I don't think if I had friends or family visiting, I don't think I would go. But you wrote in the book about taking people in, sort of trying to steer them away from the Mona Lisa, showing other pictures even in the same room. For me, it's the same with the Eiffel Tower. If I have friends visiting, I'm like, yeah, go and do it. Go and get it out of the way, then we'll talk.
It depends on how close you are to your friends. And if you want to keep them as your friends.
I don't think I'll even go with my family, to be honest. But it seems to me that you enjoy sharing the Louvre. I mean, but it does strike me as quite a switch from when you went there much younger, that it didn't really leave an impression on you.
No, in fact, you know what? I found my diary from the first time I came to Paris when I was a college student, and I looked to see what I had written about the Louvre, and I have no memories of the Louvre. I just wrote, I went to the Louvre, and then I went to the Tuileries, and I described in much greater detail my lunch that day.
That must have been so exciting to find the word Louvre in your diary when you're writing this book, and then so disappointing to see that you didn't.
I know that I didn't even say I loved the Tintoretto or I loved the Tiziano.
Something tangible to go back and find.
No.
Yeah. What about I'm always curious when I read books like this, where it seems it's become an obsession. And I'm always curious about, for the author, for example, did your husband get irritated that you'd, find a Mona Lisa when you're in, New York or something? And, did it become too much of an obsession that it took over?
Well, I've been married now for, I think almost 40 years.
Right.
And he always gets irritated with me. But you know what? I'm an old investigative reporter for the New York Times.
Right.
And he has to put up with these obsessions.
Yeah.
So,
what about for yourself then? Did you find because I have obsessions in Paris, and sometimes I find myself going too deep and going, come on, Oliver, pull it back a little bit,
It's the problem with us. We get obsessed and we go too deep, and then someone has to pull us out. Or we have to say, you know what, enough already.
Yeah.
But one of my mantras as a journalist always was accuracy and deadline, and that perfection is evil, and you can't look at perfection. You've got to look for doneness. And doneness means at some point you have to stop reporting and just write. And I had to do that.
That speaks to me very deeply. And I think a lot of people, even as a podcaster, I used to be a journalist, the idea, especially in the world of podcasting, and I hope people at home can relate that to whatever they do, there are a lot of people who want to start some project or write a book or whatever, and they wait for perfection. And then you think about people who are so, you've written 3 or 4 books since I met you. If you're waiting to get it so perfect, it's never going to happen, is it?
No, but working for the New York Times, working for a daily newspaper, you can't worry about perfection. Yeah. That deadline comes, you've got to do it. But it's the same thing covering the Louvre or visiting the Louvre. You think about the Louvre, okay, I'm going to go to the Louvre and I'm going to see all the great things. No, because if you try to do that, you're going to get exhausted, you're going to be frustrated, and you're going to be unhappy. So it's why I tell visitors, and I wrote it in the book, find your Louvre identity.
Yep.
Find what kind of a visitor you are. Do you want to just go in and spend 2 hours? Do you want to go in and just wander around and be a flaneur? Do you want to go in and just look at one work of art and contemplate it and think about life? And once you decide that, it makes it a lot easier because you forgive yourself for not being perfect.
I like that part of the book. You got all the minimalist and the maximalist, the flaneur, the different ways of visiting. I tried to figure what I was, couldn't figure it out.
But that's good in a way because you go each time with a different identity.
Yeah, true.
It's like you go each time and you discover a different work of art.
The bit that you put about, I don't know how to pronounce it in Italian, Umberto Eco.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like you pronounced my name right. I was stunned. Nobody pronounces it
100%
right.
100% Sicilian origin, like some oil or something, right? My wife said to me when I met her that she said something along the lines of that she could sometimes go to a museum and look at one piece and just leave. And I thought that was the wildest thing I ever heard. And then I read in your book that that's what Eco said, and probably people have said since the beginning of museums. So my wife was probably just quoting someone, or she's also equally cool. But I've never done it like that. I've never gone in and just looked at one piece.
Well, part of that is with the Louvre, you have to pay 22 euros to get in, and it's soon going to be 30 euros to get in. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you feel you want to get your money's worth. And it's a problem because there's no really good place to sit and there's no really good place to eat.
Sure.
So it's why I tell visitors or readers, do not go to the Louvre on an empty stomach and with a full bladder. Go prepared. But go with an open spirit. And if you give yourself the ability to go back to the Louvre and to go maybe more than once, then you will experience it in a different way.
You know what? I have something I created, Louvre legs, which is that feeling of being too tired at the end of it. And I tell people when they go to the Louvre, take it, because people, they're staying in Montmartre, they're like, I'm going to walk down there. No. Save your legs.
Louvre legs. I love it. I wish I had known
That's the
this
second
before
time
I wrote my book.
You said that to me as well when I told you that I proposed to my wife on the Pont du Carrousel leading to the Louvre.
Yes.
You were like, I could have written that in my Sen book.
Exactly.
Why do we not talk before your books come out, Elaine?
Why don't you give me a call? You know, you never call, you never write, you never send flowers, Oliver, really and truly.
Oh dear. Okay, I want to talk about...
Although, wait, I did tell you, you know, I offered you my guest room to do your podcast if you ever get stuck, because I love creating a bureau, a news bureau in my apartment.
Yeah.
So if you want to come, we can hang out.
If I was living in Montmartre still, I would have taken you up. But now I'm down here in Bastille. But I'll keep you in mind. I think we have to touch on one of my obsessions that crosses with one of your obsessions, Philippe Auguste wall. Now, you've seen parts I've never seen. There's not many people that can say that.
Well, first of all, we have to define who's Philippe Auguste and what's the wall.
Well, the regular listeners, they know exactly. Okay.
Well, but what's the obsession? Tell me.
What's my obsession?
Yeah.
I just love the idea that it was swallowed up by Paris. I often say that old city walls, they either disappear, they use the stones to rebuild or to expand, or they stay perfectly in place. Mont Saint-Michel, Carcassonne, you've got these walled-in old cities, or the city grows so quickly it swallows the wall and it disappears only to resurface. So I made it kind of my mission in Paris to find the vestiges. I've been everywhere, knocking on doors. Yeah, everywhere.
That's a great book.
Shh. And then the only bit I haven't really got into is deep down in the Louvre. And then I'm reading your book and see that you're talking to, was it the fire guy?
Yes, it was the head of the firefighters of Paris. And he took me on a secret tour of the Louvre one day. It was really fun.
So you got a part of it was, because the fortress so this is 800 years ago, the king built the wall to protect the city when he was off on crusades. The fortress was at the Louvre, and it was sort of uncovered when they were building the pyramid, so in the 80s. And then there's bits that still aren't open to public. So what was that? I don't imagine you're a wall fan yet or at the time, because it's weird to be.
I don't think I'm as an expert like you.
So
but I'd love to learn learn about walls.
So the fireman goes, there's the Philippe Auguste wall. Did you have a sense of? I know you were behind the scenes, so you were seeing things that people haven't seen before.
Well, what he did, and I was really, really. This was one of my best trips in the Louvre, where the head of the firefighters who have to protect the Louvre day and night took me into the basement and all the way up to the roof.
Right.
And we spent a day together discovering places where no normal people go. And when we were in the basement, he took me through all these secret passages. Like I saw, there's an old World War II bunker where... which they now use as a storage facility and as the firefighters exercise in. But there's a World War II bunker in case the Louvre is attacked. And, we're walking along and he said, I have to show you something that no one sees. And it's this big chunk of rock. And he says, this is one of the pieces, the vestiges of Philippe Auguste's wall. And he made me stop there like we were looking at some kind of religious icon because he said, people have been here for 30 years and they've never seen this. So I felt really excited because if you're a wall person, then there is the public part of the Philippe Auguste's wall, which is also extraordinary.
Yeah.
You can actually see graffiti from the early workers when they carved in hearts or crosses or
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Walnut, that's the word.
walnut. Is that the
walnut.
name of the book?
No, maybe. I think it's cool. Firstly, the Louvre is just so big, the parts that are open to the public. So it doesn't surprise me how much is hidden behind closed doors. You even mentioned that there's residences where people, like the director or whatever, they can live up on the top floors and stuff like that. You really go sort of everywhere in the book. Not to mention the Louvre facilities outside of Paris. But I want to stay in Paris for a second because we haven't talked about the paintings. I think we give 30 seconds to the Mona Lisa because I want to get deeper into the other ones. But end of the day, are you a fan? Underrated, overrated?
Well, I had to spend a lot of time with her because I always wondered what is the mystique about the Mona Lisa. She's not the Virgin Mary. She's not a saint. She's just an ordinary woman in Florence who Leonardo painted. And yet there's an obsession with her. And something like 80% of all visitors to the Louvre have to go and see her. So I came with real hesitancy, and I really had to do a deep dive. So I discovered that people write letters to the Mona Lisa because they think she's real. And because I'm an investigative reporter, I asked for permission to read all the letters. So one day I went to the Louvre and I read hundreds of letters written to the Mona Lisa. So I started to understand her as a personality. And then the guy who's in charge, the curator in charge of the Mona Lisa, said to me, you have to be alone with her. She was meant for contemplation, not for this mass kind of visit with lots of noise and lots of people. And so one day when I was totally alone with her, I spent time, with two of us spent time together, she and I, and we bonded. So that changed my view, and I began to have some respect for her, yes.
That's the tattoo on your arm that I saw before, is it?
Oh, you're not supposed to have seen that. That was really a little bit secret.
Yeah, I think I'm curious what you think of my take on it. Because she was stolen in 1911, I think, yeah. And it was fascinating to read about how the newspaper being sort of new technology of newspaper mean that the story spread far and wide quicker. And my take on it is it's kind of a viral story.
100%.
And I would maybe controversially say that there are other Da Vinci paintings that are more interesting and better at face value.
Not only that, but the chief curator of paintings doesn't really like the Mona Lisa.
There you go.
And I saw him once make a face when everybody was talking about the Mona Lisa. So I said, Sebastian, are there other paintings of women who you think are more beautiful than the Mona Lisa? And he said, absolutely. I said, can we go see them? So he said yes. And so one day we went and looked at other paintings and found other women who are just as glorious or even more glorious and more beautiful than Mona Lisa.
Did you get a favorite woman in there?
I got a favorite man in there.
Go on then, which one?
Well, he threw in a man. He threw in Titian's Man with a Glove, which is in the same room as Mona Lisa.
Right.
In fact, she's almost sort of looking at him there, but nobody ever pays any attention to this absolutely gorgeous young man holding a glove and looking out. And you can really bond with him and you can fall in love with him. And Dame Judi Dench, the British actress, she was asked once on one of those BBC radio programs if she were stranded on a desert island, what object she would like to take with her. And she said, I would take this painting, Man with a Glove. So you can become obsessed with her.
Such a good answer. And it goes to show everyone should have a favorite painting that's not the main one.
Well,
So
I have my own, though. That was his.
Which is yours?
Antonello Damasceno, who was a Sicilian painter, right? And he painted a mercenary, Il Condottieri. And to look at this painting, which again is in the main galleries of the Louvre, is to fall in love with him, because if I were stranded on a desert island, I would take the mercenary with me.
Good answer as well.
Yeah.
I think
A little dangerous, but if he's stranded with me on on an island, the mercenary is who I want to take care of me.
better than taking that the rapey one that you talked about in the book. I showed a picture of the Verrou, the one where the guy's got his hand on the.
Isn't that a rape photo? Isn't that a rape painting?
Well, because I was reading your book, I pulled up a picture of it, and I read what you wrote first, and I couldn't picture it. And then I looked at it, and I was trying to see it from a fresh perspective. I couldn't. So I showed it to my wife. I said, "What do you think of this picture?" She goes, "A bit rapey."
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Okay.
So but I think I would take either. I wanted to say the woman with the lace that you mentioned in the book, but I feel like you influenced me on that because I read it in your book.
Yes.
But maybe that one of, is it Marat, the guy dying in a bathtub?
Yes.
That one speaks to me a little bit. I saw that recently and I was like, wow, there's a lot of emotion in that picture. But speaking of visiting the Louvre, I want to talk to you about practicalities. I went there last week and I purposely went there as a tourist. Like I know the secrets of getting in. I've got friends who could get me in for free and all this, but I wanted to be there as a total tourist. And tell me what you think about this. At first I tried to book it online, drove me nuts.
Terrible website. Terrible website. And I hope everybody who is associated with the Louvre hears this because the Louvre has to do something about that website.
Yeah. And that happens a lot in France, that the website, especially for such a world famous place, I gave up. I tried for 15 minutes. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
So I rocked up. I went downstairs to avoid the big queues at the pyramid upstairs. Yes. Really long queue. And I was like, I can't, we got a pram with an 8-month-old. She goes, you need to have pre-booked a ticket. Go up to the top again. So I went up to the top again and she said, you can skip the line with a pram, which was true. So skipped the line, went down in the elevator, which got stuck. The staff elevator. Yeah. So my wife was stuck in the elevator for a while. Finally fixed it, came down, went and bought a ticket. There's no one in the queue to buy a ticket.
Yes.
That took 10 seconds.
Yes.
Straight in, and then didn't plan anything, just walked. And this is maybe embarrassing. I hesitate to even say it, but I think I maybe had never been in the Apollo Gallery before.
Okay.
Do you think that's possible?
Yes, it's possible.
Because and if you don't know what I'm talking about at home with the Apollo Gallery, probably the most beautiful room in the world. Maybe, like, very intense, but
and it's a mini Versailles. Tell your listeners that you can't make it out to Versailles. Go to the Apollo Gallery.
You're telling them
because
now.
This is where Louis XIV did a mini Versailles before he built Versailles, so that you can get out of having to go all the way to Versailles by saying, "Let's go to the secret room in the Louvre and discover it," and then we will not have to, because it's so beautiful and golden and lots of cherubs and gobbledygook, we won't have to go to Versailles.
Yeah, you described it really. Everything in your book is so beautifully described. But that room is, you called it something like the most beautiful jewel box in the world or something like that, because it houses the crown jewels. But just stunning. And I was like, I think usually when I come, I do what most people do. They just walk through, they go see the Mona Lisa and so on, go and see the Philippe Auguste wall down below, get out of there before you get Louvre legs. This time I went deeper and I was just floored over and over again and happily getting lost. And I thought it was lovely. But I also had that impression of it being a difficult visit. Do you think that's something they're going to improve?
It will improve. It will improve eventually, because now President Macron, the president of France, has committed himself to the new renaissance of the Louvre and a huge building project to open up a new entrance and put the Mona Lisa in her own space. But it's going to take 6 years before this is all put into effect. So I don't know what's going to happen in the meantime, because meanwhile, the Louvre is in terrible shape. It's, it needs new roofing. It's got leaking all the time. It sits on in a flood zone, so sometimes the Seine backs up and floods the basements.
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like you said, 80% of visitors go to see the Mona Lisa. I think you said that in Japan, when one of the few times, I think it was Japan, that the Mona Lisa traveled, that they put people on a moving sidewalk thing to see it. Like, it feels, when I was at the Mona Lisa last week, it wasn't a great experience. It was so many people like elbowing each other, and it's sort of just The magic wasn't.
No, you have to be alone with her. Also, the other problem with her is she's not been restored. I mean, maybe she was 3 centuries ago. I don't know, but she's yellow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look at her and you compare her to some of the other restored paintings, and you say, why is there all this yellow varnish on her face? But no one would dare touch her.
Yeah. Why do you think people get so obsessed with the Louvre? You mentioned several people who just... You mentioned a few people who like chose not to commit suicide when they saw the Louvre or something like that. There's this deep love for this place.
Well, I interviewed 2 people who went to every single room and saw every single work of art in the Louvre. I mean, do you know that if you stood in front of every single work of art in the Louvre for 15 seconds, it would take you 145 hours.
Some maybe don't deserve 15 seconds. What do you think about that? But I mean, there are other museums in Paris. There are other much more manageable things.
Of course.
Do you think it's part of the attraction of it is how unmanageable it is?
No, I think it literally is. I have to go to the Louvre. I've come to Paris. I have to go to the Eiffel Tower. I have to go to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa. It's just one of those things you have to check off. It's like when you go to New York, you have to go to the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty.
I'm glad you said that because I've got a New York trip coming up. I might ask you.
You do?
I might ask you about that off air. But how many times did you visit the Louvre in preparation for this book?
Oh, gosh, I couldn't count. I mean,
ballpark.
Oh, God, a couple hundred, I think.
Couple hundred?
Well, at least, because I interviewed well over 100 people.
Okay, then follow-up question is...
No, it took much too long to write this book. Talk about a deep dive and not getting finished.
Yeah.
It took forever.
How many years were you writing it for?
I started it during COVID because I was stuck at home during COVID, and I'm looking at I'm cleaning out my books, and I'm finding these books on the Louvre, and I thought, gee, this is a really interesting subject, and I think I'm going to get to understand the Louvre better, but how do I do it? It was too big. It was too big. And you know, I hesitated because I didn't know anything about art history. You know, I mean, I'm coming in as an ignoramus trying to understand this place. So it took a long time to get comfortable. It's kind of like, you know, when I was a foreign correspondent, a war correspondent, having to go into a country and I've never been there and I have no contacts. It takes a while before you can get your legs and you kind of get the lay of the land.
The important follow-up question then is, how many times do you think you'll visit it again, or are you done? Are you like never going back?
Oh no, I have to go back. I have to keep going back. You know, I mean, someone just told me there's some play on in Paris now, a Mona Lisa Comes Alive play.
Okay,
so I gotta go see it. You know?
The obsession will never die.
No, but I have a pass that gets me in free and without ever waiting in line, which is the secret to really understanding the Louvre.
How do you get that pass? That's the secret I want to hear.
You become a member of the Société des Amis du Louvre, the Society of the Friends of the Louvre. It costs 80 euros or 120 euros for a couple, and you get this magic card with your picture on it, and you can go in and out anytime without ever booking and without ever waiting.
Gosh, I'm glad you figured that out before you wrote the book. Imagine if someone told you that after 200 visits.
Yeah, well,
at 22 euros a pop.
It's fabulous because you walk in, you literally you cut in front of absolutely everybody like you work in the Louvre, and you just wave this card and they just let you in.
Yeah. The other trick is bring a pram.
Oh, that's a great idea.
They don't even check if there's a baby in there. They never check. You just walk up to the front. Sometimes they even say nice things about your baby without looking. Oh, is she asleep? Yeah, she's asleep. Definitely not a pumpkin in there, you know. Let's finish, Elaine, with I give you 2 minutes on this one.
Yes.
You're talking to a world of Francophile listeners out there, many of whom have been to the Louvre, many of whom have never been to the Louvre. Can you give us the 2-minute walkthrough of what you think is the ultimate way to visit the Louvre? You can name paint. That was easy.
There's no ultimate way.
Okay, then I'll rephrase the question.
Yes.
You visited 200 times.
Yes.
Let's say that they're going to kick you out of Paris forever for whatever reason.
Right.
You've got one last visit.
Yes.
Tell me what has to be included on that visit.
The reason I say you can't answer that question is there are 2 different ways to look at the Louvre. do you have to see the Mona Lisa or do you not have to see the Mona Lisa? If you've got guests and they have to see the Mona Lisa, you have to go a certain way.
Okay, you don't. Let's say no.
Okay, no. All right, what I would do is I would go up to the Richelieu wing immediately, go up to basically the third floor of the Louvre, and go look at all the beautiful French paintings, and go discover the Chardin still lives. Go into the Poussin rooms where nobody ever goes and looks at these extraordinarily beautiful, tiny, detailed paintings. And then go into the ancient Persia rooms and pretend you are in Iran. You know, I spent a lot of time in Iran. I still remember going to Persepolis, and the guy in Persepolis, the guide, said, if you really want to understand Persepolis, you've got to go to the Louvre. Mm-hmm. People don't even go into this collection, but immediately you could be in ancient Persia, or you can be in 17th, 18th century France with these extraordinary French paintings, and you can be alone in these rooms. And that to me is magic, is to find aloneness in the Louvre.
I love it, and to fall in love.
And because you're creating a relationship with one room or one painting or one person.
Brilliant. And speaking of brilliant, adventures in the Louvre, How to Fall in Love with the World's Greatest Museum by Elaine Cellino, coming out in April. Listen, this woman visited 200 times, read every sign, looked at every painting, interviewed every person. If you want to take a deep, deep dive into this museum, that is the book you need to buy. Elaine, thank you so much for being on the show again.
This was really fun. I hope I don't have to wait to write another book before we meet again.
No,
Oliver.
I'll make sure it happens sooner than that. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you.
And that was Elaine Cellino talking about her new book, which I'm very excited to read. But speaking of the Louvre, I'm here with another Louvre expert, Bertrand Dalmont from My Private Paris. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Oliver?
Excited.
Yes?
Because you're going to tell me something about the Louvre.
Yeah, I thought you were excited about the book. I can't wait to read it.
Well, of course. You're in for a treat, I think. But what are you going to take us to today?
Well, I want to share my excitement because I've just seen the couture exhibition at the Louvre. And I must say that I was quite... couture is not necessarily my thing. Maybe you know. But I was surprised by how great this exhibition has been prepared and set, and how even if you have no interest whatsoever in couture, how it fits perfectly the museum.
So what, couture as in women's... tell me exactly what it was.
So couture is the very high-end fashion designing. So the Dior, the Balenciaga, the Balmain, the Gautier, etc. And the Louvre has selected 100 pieces of couture, with mostly dresses, but a few handbags and boots and shirts. And they have split them over the first floor of the northern side of the Louvre, which is about 9,000 square meters. So it's huge. And each piece is located in a room where the art or the decor of the room is very similar to the style of the dress.
I love it. What a good idea. So in other words, you go and see the paintings that, let's say, are all in deep reds or whatever, and then you get some kind of red handbag, that sort of style?
Exactly. One that I loved the most was in the apartment of Napoleon III that have been restored last summer. They have like 4 dresses in there. And for the past 10 years, I've been taking guests there and trying to feed their imagination with the big parties that were organized there in the 1800s. And now you can actually see fancy dresses in these rooms. So that is pretty spectacular. There are also medieval themed couture next to what we call the Treasury of Saint Denis, so medieval religious artifact with dresses that are inspired by the fashion of the 11 or 1200s. That's pretty cool. And also in all the area where we have furniture and interior decor, some kind of period rooms of the time of Versailles. we do see also very, very cool outfits that are inspired by those years.
It's super cool when they find a way to add some life to a museum. Maybe doesn't change all that much. And it sounds like they've succeeded, huh?
Yes. They didn't push it all the way to have like mannequins in them, because I guess that would have looked a little bit dumb. But you see this magnificent fabric first, then craftsmanship, and then dress in the middle of other artworks.
Brilliant. And you guys do a lot of tours of the Louvre. Is this something that's part of it, or it's only on for 6 months, right?
It's on for 6 months, so up until the 21st of July 2025. And the cool thing is that it's not a special exhibition in one part of the Louvre where you go if you want. No, it's all over the museum. So we do tons of tours of the Louvre, and on every tour there would be a surprising couture appearance during the tour.
Is it 10 out of 10 stars from Bertrand?
10 out of 10, probably, although I thought I would give it 1 before I go. And so I think 10 out of 10 for surprising me and convincing me that it was a very great idea.
I love it. Bertrand, I will go and check it out myself. You don't need a reason to go to the Louvre, really, but I'm glad to have another one. In terms of you guys, My Private Paris is the name. Tours of the Louvre, tours of Paris, tours of beyond, and we've got some exciting day trips coming up. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks everybody for listening. This is the Eiffel Tower. That was Bertrand from My Private Paris and the author Elaine Chelino. Check them all out, and I'll see you again on Monday for another episode.